Have a great work session this evening on the Glade Road project. So I want to get started with the presentation and discussion of the Glade Road project. Jeremy, go ahead with that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This work session will focus on the Glade Road project, including the phases currently under final design, as well as the remaining sections of the corridor. I'd like to introduce Chad Gardner with Trench Systems. He's our design consultant that's been working on this project. They've performed the preliminary design or conceptual design, and they are also working on the final design for phase one right now. This work section is going to cover several topics in relation to Glade Road. First will be a recap of the history of the project and the progress that's been made. We'll then provide an update on the first phase of the project, the section that's between Branford Road and Manning Drive. I'll spend some time discussing and attempting to clarify the differences between preliminary or conceptual design and the final design stages of a project. I will then move on to the remaining sections of the corridor and present key components of the individual phases and the possible design parameters that could be established for each particular section. I will discuss possible funding sources that are available for these projects and will present a possible funding scenario that would allow the project to progress in a timeline that fits with the identified funding sources. And lastly, I'll talk about the condition of the existing pavement and the fact that the need for interim maintenance is greatly dependent on the planned schedule for reconstruction. With that, I'll start with project history. In 2011, in response to public concerns with traffic congestion at the intersection of Glade Road and Bluebonnet Drive, staff presented an update to the City Council explaining the need for the stop signs at that particular intersection. It was made clear that in order to remove the stop signs along Glade Road, the street would have to be lowered in order to address the visibility issues. It was decided to take a comprehensive look at the corridor to develop a preliminary design. An engineering consultant was brought on board, and the initial public meetings were held in 2013. And after multiple work sessions with City Council and the design consultant, it was decided to proceed with the first phase of the corridor. That's the section between Branford and Manning. You can see the limits of the initial phase here. This is the section between Branford and Manning and represents about 1/4 of the corridor. This section of the corridor has several different components. The roundabout at Branford Road intersection and the roundabout at Riverwalk Drive intersection. There's also the realignment of the Bedford Road intersection to better accommodate the existing turning movements and increase the sight distances. There's also the drainage issue associated with the undersized box culverts under Glade Road at Riverwalk Drive. And last but not least, this project would address the sight distance issues located at Bluebonnet Drive by lowering Glade Road to allow for the removal of the stop signs along Glade Road. This is a conceptual layout for the Branford Road roundabout. This is still a conceptual plan and is still in the design phase. This is a realignment of the Bedford Road intersection and will fit nicely with the new development at 1105 Glade Road. You may remember that this development was designed in such a way that the future realignment of Glade Road and Bedford Road would have a minimal impact on the new development. This is the conceptual layout for the Riverwalk Drive roundabout. It's still conceptual and still in the design phase. You may recall that the city has already acquired a portion of the needed right-of-way, the southwest corner located at that parcel right there. Now that we've talked about what's included in phase one, we need to discuss when it will be taking place. The design consultant is working to get the first reviewable set of plans into the city and to have right-of-way plans at the point where we can begin the right-of-way acquisition process. We're expecting to have those next month. We're expecting to have utility conflict plans and start the utility coordination process next month as well. We've established a date in September for an update to City Council to discuss the current status of the phase one plans and some of the details that have been determined in the design process. We are expecting to go through a few review submittals and have the plans ready for bidding in March 2016. This would allow for City Council to award the contract in April and construction of this phase to begin in May of 2016. This project is expected to take over a year to complete in its entirety and would place completion of this phase around June of 2017. It should be noted that this project will require road closures due to the limited space available to construct proposed improvements, and more information will be provided as we get farther along in the final design process. Now I want to shift gears a little bit. We were just talking about phase 1, the section that's under final design. I want to talk a bit about what final design means and how it's different than preliminary or conceptual design. Preliminary or conceptual design is what we've been working with for the past few years. This is what's been performed for the entire corridor. This is what's generated a lot of the questions, which unfortunately cannot be answered with full certainty at this point in the project. The final design stage of the project is when we start to be able to answer the detailed questions. This is the point in the project when we start to get clarity of the details. The preliminary design or conceptual design establishes the layout of the proposed roadway. This is when you look at the corridor as a whole and take a big picture approach. You look at intersection ratings and traffic counts, turning movements, and any other available data to help determine what the corridor should be built as. It then lays out the concept to determine the estimated right-of-way and the estimated cost for the project. This is the big picture part of the project. This is an example of what you would see during the preliminary or conceptual stages of a project. The bottom left is an artistic rendering of a possible street section. This shows what the street could look like if designed and built in a certain way. This is to help get a feel for the look of the project once it's completed. There's also the layout view. This is shown on the top right. This is the exhibit that helps illustrate where and what improvements or changes are being considered. As you can see in this example, there's a dedicated left turn lane for the westbound traffic for Clear Fork Drive. It also shows the need to extend the pavement to the south to accommodate the new turn lane. This level of design cannot tell me the exact details that I may want to know about a project, but it does give you that high-level, big-picture idea of what the project will include. The final design stage of a project is when you start to establish the specifics about a project. One of the first things that must be done is defining the definition of the design parameters. This is what the design professional will use to take the conceptual design to the next level. Design parameters are the guidance that is provided to make sure the end product is what is desired. Examples of possible design parameters could be: use the existing infrastructure as much as possible to reduce the scope of the project and the cost of construction, minimize the impacts to trees, fluctuate trail width between 8 and 10 to accommodate existing trees but maintain a minimum of 8 feet in width at all times. These are just some of the examples that could be used as guidance for the design consultant to be able to design the final project. As you can imagine, this type of guidance can greatly impact the final design of a street project. If the design parameter is established to adjust trail width to better accommodate the existing terrain, but maintain a set minimum width, you would end up with a much different product than if you establish a design parameter of a 10-foot trail that must be placed 4 foot off the back of the curb. Both of these scenarios, you'll end up with a trail next to your street, but by providing the design professional with a different guidance, you'd end up with a different end product. The final design stage also generates the construction documents. This includes several different items that are needed in order to construct what was conceptually considered in the previous stage. This is also the point when the extent of the needed right-of-way is established.
Just a question on that point, Chairman. So that's when the extent of the right-of-way necessary is established. But can you, I mean, there's theoretically, you can set a design parameter that says, give us a plan that develops within existing right-of-way without breaching it.
You can provide that guidance. Some of the issues you're going to have is some of the unplatted lots may not necessarily have any established right-of-way. It may be prescriptive right-of-way, so you may get into some questions at that point. But you could have a design parameter that says we're willing to go back of curb on a pedestrian element or reduce the width of the street no less than X. There's a lot of different guidance you can give the consultant to emphasize we want to reduce the right-of-way impacts to this level. Now, it is a give and take, because anything that you're going to do to reduce those right-of-way impacts is going to sacrifice some of that, whether it be parkway, whether it be trailway,
Sure.
sideway width. But those are the things that will help take that conceptual plan to that final phase, final design component, and make sure that we still meet what we're trying to accomplish. This is an example of the engineered construction documents that will be produced in the final stage of the project. On the left, you can see actual concept documents that will help establish the specifics. These are examples from the Pleasant Run project. This is actually the contract specification document that is included with the final design phase. These are actually the plans that are constructed. As you can tell, they're not nearly as visual. Most of it's words, text, line work. But that's what is necessary to answer some of those detailed questions that we've had during this conceptual phase. With those plan sets, you start getting the exact right-of-way limits, the exact location of the curb lines, where the driveways are, where the grade cuts are going to be, some of the drainage inlets, some of those concerns that may come up or people may have questions about that we may not be able to answer during the conceptual phase. We can answer once we get to that final design phase. I'm now going to talk about the phases of the Glade Road corridor. I'm using a little bit different nomenclature for the sections than in past presentations. Phase 1 includes a section between Branchford and Manning. Phase 2 includes a section between Manning Drive and Pool Road. Phase 3 would be the section between Pool Road and Heritage Avenue. And Phase 4 would be the western city limits of Branchford Road. We've already talked about Phase 1, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about Phase 2. This is the section between Manning and Pool. Glade Road from Manning to Pool has several key components, including the conceptual design has several components, including curb and gutter system, drainage system designed to accommodate a 100-year storm event, a center turn lane between Barron Road and Chelsea Drive, which you can see on this exhibit. We have also a two-lane section for the majority between Chelsea Drive and Camelot Drive that will help reduce some of the right-of-way impacts seen in this section. As you can see, the pavement width will actually be, on the conceptual design, the pavement is actually being extended to the south, limiting the edge of pavement to the existing edge of pavement that you see in that particular area. An eastbound dedicated left turn lane for Camelot is also included in this phase, which will require the extension of the pavement to the south. A center turn lane between Camelot Drive and Montclair. A two-lane section between Montclair Drive and Jim Mitchell Trail West. A westbound dedicated turn lane for Jim Mitchell Trail West. Would actually be a center turn lane between Jim Mitchell Trail East and Summerbrook Drive. Be a a short stretch. There would also be a eastbound dedicated left turn lane into the senior center facility.
And the blue line is the right-of-way line, correct?
Go back to that.
The dotted blue line. Is that the right-of-way line? What's the blue
The
line?
dotted blue line
Yes.
is what we would call our limits of construction. That white dash line you see just to the,
That
above
blue
that,
line,
that's the right-of-way.
right-of-way. Okay.
And again, these are the conceptual design. They did not look at any specific design parameters such as reducing right-of-way or adjusting lane width or adjusting the pedestrian element or reducing walkways. This was the high-level approach to kind of get a feel for the corridor in its entirety. The preliminary design for this section of the corridor includes all new pavement with left turn lanes where warranted and standard curbs and gutters. A 10-foot trail on the north side and a 5-foot sidewalk on the south side. This section of the corridor is estimated to cost almost $6.4 million in order to complete construction. This does include design and right-of-way estimates. This section is also expected to take 16 months to construct. These cost estimates and timelines are based on the preliminary or conceptual design and do not account for any design parameters that may be established for this section of the corridor. When we look at this specific section of the corridor, there may be some design parameters that may help shape the design to meet the intent of the City Council. Some of the possible design parameters could include allowing the trail width to be reduced to 8 foot for short sections to limit right-of-way needs, or to save existing trees. Placing a trail on the back of curb if it reduces the right-of-way needs. Using the existing curb and gutter along the Thornberry subdivision if it reduces the cost and construction time. And possibly shifting the trail alignment to use some of the existing right-of-way. Again, these are not necessarily recommendations, but design parameters that could be incorporated to have that final design product meet what the city's desires are. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Phase 3. This is the section between Pool Road and Heritage Avenue. Glade Road from Pool Road to Heritage Avenue has several key components, including the conceptual design includes an engineered drainage system to accommodate the 100-year storm event using concrete curbs and gutters, the addition of a westbound lane from Heritage Avenue to Roberts Road, and a southbound lane on Roberts Road for a right turn only. This would be the right turn only lane added to Roberts Road onto Glade Road. This would help reduce some of the traffic backups that are experienced on Roberts Road waiting for those turning movements. And we have basically an extension of the merge lane from Heritage Avenue all the way to Roberts Road that would change that merge lane into a right turn only lane for Roberts Road.
Jeremy, was any and you all probably know the name of the street. I don't know the name.
Prestwood.
Yeah, was any consideration given to addressing that blind spot issue there?
With the turning movements?
Yeah.
Correct. We've actually looked at that a little bit, both with Train Systems and another engineering firm to try to look at some of the possible solutions, both interim and long term. One of the things that we could do if we move forward with this particular phase of the project, we could offset the turn lanes a little bit more to give you a little bit more of a sight distance. You're still going to have somewhat of a concern. This is actually sitting from the turn lane looking the other direction. As you can see, there's a pretty steady flow of cars. We did not get a photo of a car actually sitting here, but if you can imagine an SUV or this minivan kind of sitting right here, it really limits your visibility going down on the oncoming traffic. So one of the things we can do with that is actually offset. We would move this turn lane to the north. We would have to remove some of the median and rebuild it and actually extend this curb line back to the north a little bit. But it would allow for that turn lane to be offset to kind of increase that sight distance. So that's one of the options that is being considered that could be included as a design parameter to this phase of the project to to address that particular concern.
Yeah, because I think we would look at that as we.
Yeah, good.
Because the other is it's out of Presswood to the west. It's a real tight turning radius there because it's a raised median. But you could feather down and still have a median, but lower it down to grade level. So a car needed to clip it to turn, or a big truck, it wouldn't be taking out the median, but it would allow drive over. So yeah, I think there'd be several things to look at once that gets done.
And Jeremy, maybe you or Chad can talk to the safety question too on this merge piece, because that seems to be driving a large part of the effort into this part of the road anyway. And you're still going to have a merge from 2 lanes to 1, and you're moving it from where it's at currently to where the intersection is at that point. I guess, can you talk to the safety side of that one way or the other? On the surface, it looks like you've got as much chance for confusion.
I'll
For people
touch
in
on
the
that.
wrong lane going over,
Chad may want to add something to that. What we're doing is basically we have what appears to be a short merge. It is completely within traffic engineering standards for what the situation we have out there. But when people basically are leaving that traffic signal, you end up with 2 cars trying to meet each other. We have quite a bit of the accidents that do occur on Glade Road are actually at this location. So we could either extend the merge, try to sign it better, but the solution here that's being proposed would be to basically eliminate that merge, extend that lane of traffic all the way to Roberts Road. We would sign it in multiple locations advising that this is a right turn only lane, giving cars much more opportunity to merge to the left to get to that through lane. You will probably still have the situation where people neglect to read the sign, or they're not paying attention, where they end up driving down. Ideally, they would not just jet over. They would actually respect the right turn only, go north on Roberts, turn around and come back. That is a situation that would be present, but it would allow for significantly more opportunity to make that merge versus what we have today.
Yeah, because right now when you're at Walgreens, it tells you to get into the right lane and keep going forward. Not get into the left lane. You're supposed to get into the right, so that all has to be.
Yes, that would all be changed with this particular scenario. It would be a through lane, keep left, right turn only for the right, and it would be signed, and everything would end up being changed along with the project if this was to be
Chuck, aggressive drivers are still going to ignore it. Now, you might could do the large buttons, as to kind of form a boundary, so you can drive over, but it's going to be something that's going to really bump your car. But it does kind of delineate. This is not a, so there's stuff.
kind of like we do at the 26th intersection.
That wouldn't impact though when you drive over stuff, but it would hopefully delineate it where this isn't going to be a blend-in lane, but you're always going to have people that cut in, cut out. Yeah.
That could be a treatment. As you can see, there's quite a bit of the white line here. That could be done with, the buttons to allow for that, kind of separation between the 2 lanes to try to prevent people from merging at the last minute.
Well, that'll just effectively shorten the length of your merge area, won't it?
He'll actually be extending the merge a little bit.
Now, if you put a barrier from Robert's back, it effectively shortens the merge length.
I don't think that.
It's just a delineate.
Yes, but it would be the intent of that would be to get them to merge prior to this location, which is basically it'd be probably looking at a few hundred feet there for that church parcel, basically having that solid line.
You still have the whole Copper Glen subdivision there between where the current merge is and where I think he's talking about.
Well,
We wouldn't put anything there that would basically prevent you from driving over it, but it would encourage you to. It would bring it to your attention that that's not the appropriate move at that time.
And once we got it done, we would monitor it and see. On Center Park at Bedford, it used to be striped. We had to put some buttons because people were just cutting that intersection and almost taking out cars. So it'll be the same thing whatever we come up with. It'll be, see how it works initially. If it doesn't, adding buttons or something, and hopefully delineate it to provide for a safety factor.
The change from merging into the right lane to merging into the left lane is going to make a big difference here, because that's a much more
It's a common.
expected situation.
Merge into your blind side.
And that's why I think this was recommended by Train Systems during the conceptual design as a way to alleviate some of those issues with the merging situation we have today. preliminary design, a conceptual design for this section of the corridor includes all new pavement with left turn lanes where warranted, standard curbs and gutters that are designed to accommodate a 100-year storm event, a 10-foot trail on the north side, and a 5-foot sidewalk on the south side, with the addition of right turn lanes at Roberts Road and an additional westbound lane from Heritage Avenue to Roberts Road. This section of the corridor is estimated to cost over $4 million in order to complete construction. This includes design and right-of-way estimates. This section is also expected to take 14 months to construct. These cost estimates and timelines are based on the preliminary design and do not account for any design parameters that may be established for this section of the corridor. When we look at this specific section of the corridor, there may be some design parameters that may help shape the design to meet the intent of City Council. Some of the possible design parameters include using the existing infrastructure as much as possible to help reduce the scope of the project and limit the cost of construction. One sample design parameter could be use the existing curb and gutter on the south side of Glade Road. This makes up approximately 90% of the south side of Glade Road for this section of the corridor, where it's feasible. Use the existing drainage system, where applicable, and use the existing sidewalk on the south side of Glade Road. If these design parameters were used, we could add pavement to the north side of the existing roadway within the existing available right-of-way. This is basically a photo of what I'm mentioning here with these design parameters is you could actually extend the roadway to the north, build your curb line. You could even do, depending on your pavement depth, a possible reconstruction, rehabilitation kind of mixture between the two. You'd have a new curb line here. Your older curb line, you'd have some color difference for the first couple of years till the new concrete began to age. But you could actually build this and maintain or salvage some of the existing infrastructure on that site. So we would not necessarily have to rip it out and start from scratch if we wanted to have kind of that combination project approach to reduce some of that project cost. It would also reduce some of the construction time and possibly reduce some of the right-of-way impacts as well.
So what would be the estimated cost savings, roughly?
We have some numbers for full depth reclamation and reconstruction. We have not actually priced any of the scenarios based on design parameters because we haven't really had any guidance to do that. What I wanted to do is bring this forward is when we do initiate final design, that's one thing the design consultant is going to be looking for is any type of guidance we can provide him helps him to make sure he designs the product, the final product that we're looking for.
On all these, are you planning to use concrete or asphalt?
We don't have any public input, this is a work
Oh,
session,
sorry.
but it's gonna be asphalt, to answer your man.
Easy questions.
That's right.
Moving on to the Phase 4 section. And Phase 4 is the remaining section that's located between the western city limits and Branchford Road. This has several key components. Again, it will have an engineered drainage system designed to accommodate a 100-year storm event. A center turn lane located between Riverbend Drive and Bear Creek Drive. And these are all based on the conceptual design that's been discussed in the past work sessions, which can be seen here. An eastbound dedicated left turn lane for Rockrimmon Court. A westbound dedicated left turn lane for Millview Drive. A westbound dedicated left turn lane for Mill Creek Drive. A 5-foot sidewalk on the south side and a 10-foot sidewalk on the north side, or 10-foot trail, on the north side with street lighting at the intersections and pedestrian level lighting along the trail. preliminary design or conceptual design for this section of the corridor includes all new pavement with left turn lanes where warranted and standard curbs and gutters. A 10-foot trail on the north side and a 5-foot sidewalk on the south side. This section of the corridor is estimated to cost almost $5.4 million in order to complete construction. This does include the design estimate as well as the right-of-way estimates. And this section is also expected to take 13 months to construct. These cost estimates and timelines are based solely on the preliminary conceptual design and do not account for any design parameters that may be established for this section of the corridor.
Jeremy, some of those costs include the part that's actually Hearst.
Correct. And that's actually a design parameter suggestion that we may be able to talk about.
So that, whatever, 4.7 or whatever it is for construction.
Correct. There's actually...
That's including all the way through the Hearst element also.
Yeah, one of the design parameters that we can include would be seeking an interlocal agreement with the city of Hearst to cover some of the costs associated with those turn lanes. There's probably be some right-of-way acquisitions and turn lane road widening, and there would be cost tied to that that would serve, I believe, 3 different streets serve Hearst developments. So there may be some opportunities for some cost sharing with our neighboring city if we wanted to have those included into that project.
At one point, didn't you share with us that they weren't really amenable to that?
They weren't interested in building Glade Road at the time. The suggestion here would be, as you see this turn lane, which has the additional pavement width, if they're not amenable to participating in the cost of the turn lane, then if it's not a safety concern, we could remove that turn lane from the project to help reduce some of the costs. Well, that's Millpool Drive, that's not Red One, but there are three different intersections.
Clear Fork's one, yeah.
Yeah. So as you can see, we have a center turn lane here that we may or may not need. It is certain subdivisions. We have a westbound dedicated left turn lane at this location that's going to require a substantial amount of additional pavement and width. Which if they don't feel it is warranted to have included on Glade Road, and we can have those discussions, it may be something we can remove from the project and limit the scope to help reduce some of the costs. So when we looked at this specific section of the corridor, there may be some design parameters that may help shape the design to meet the intent of City Council. Some of the possible design parameters could include using the existing curb and gutter, trail, and sidewalk from the western city limits east approximately 1,100 feet. Use the existing curb and gutter on the south side of Glade Road from 304 Glade Road and 204 Glade Road, approximately 1,800 feet along the Mill Creek subdivision. And seeking an interlocal agreement for the construction of the turn lanes for Bear Creek Drive, Clear Fork Drive, and Riverbend Drive as they serve City of Hearst developments. All of these design parameters would greatly impact the scope and the final cost of the project. They would also impact the final product that is constructed. This chart summarizes the numbers that have been shown on the previous slides. Again, I'd like to emphasize that these numbers are based on the conceptual design and will differ dependent upon the design parameters that are established during the final design stage of the project.
What do these total up to now, based on that estimate, without me having to do the math?
It's this.
21.5 million is what I can.
It was right around there. I'd have to do the math to give you the exact number.
Jeremy, at one point, we did a contrast with this approach, with the full depth reclamation option for 2, 3, and 4. Do we have that data that we can just refresh ourselves with, and can you then share with me what the amenity trade-offs would be with that approach?
If this is, and I'm not sure this is what you were referring to, but let me pull up what I was.
There was a table.
Was it this is a basically a reconstruction maintenance slide that we had produced, I believe January, when we did a presentation on general infrastructure, when we actually compared some of the different costs that would be seen with various different types of maintenance or reconstruction techniques. The first one, this is again tied to basically 1 mile of roadway. I do have
There was a section by section we had.
I don't have that. I do have, this was actually specifically tied to Glade Road, but it was a very high level look at the entire corridor, not specifically broken down by section, but it kind of gave you a different, try to put it in the ballpark of some of the different costs. Again, this was done back in 2014, so the numbers have changed, but it kind of gives you a different percentage look to see what some of the
That
different
was,
things are.
understood that chart, that's more of an apples to apples.
Correct. The intent was to try to provide comparable numbers when we started looking at different maintenance techniques, whether it be a mill and overlay, a full depth reclamation, or a reconstruction, to try to really compare what the true costs are over the lifetime of the infrastructure.
Also, you adjusted in that first, like that second column.
Yeah, this is, sorry.
Lane width being comparable to full depth.
Correct. It's
Because if you
probably,
do the first column, you're doing a 50% almost more lane width. That's a lot more material and drainage.
yeah, this was actually, these are all 24-foot wide road sections, so it gives you a little bit better feel for the actual cost per square foot or per surface area of the improvement. This was actually based on a different street bid for that first column. Again, this was produced back in July 2014, so the numbers are slightly different based on the current estimates. Is that what you were looking for?
Nah, it's not, but I'll find it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Does that list the amenities that would be the difference between the reclamation and the reconstruction approaches?
It does have different components that are included in each of this section. I'm not sure that it does not have the
That describes the drainage, pedestrian facilities.
yeah, basically anything other than reconstruction for the purposes
Can
of
you
this
make
chart.
that full screen so we can read it? rather than-
It's going to be a pretty
Yeah.
small text. Is that any better?
Much better.
The only amenities included were within the reconstruction component of this chart for the purposes of this chart. So there's not any trail or drainage improvements associated with the other maintenance practices.
When you check on that second column, like for example, you've got drainage to accommodate a 100-year storm, that is included in your second column. It's
Yeah.
checked anyway, but it's not checked after that. Is that correct? So
Your
for-
second column is actually your first column at the same
At a
width as
reduced-
columns 3, 4, and 5.
Correct. This is basically per the design consultant's recommendation based on the numbers in 2014. This is the same style product but reduced to a 24-foot width only. So it's your curb and gutter, it's your brand new street, your sidewalks, your trails, no turn lanes, no anything extra other than basically keeping your same pavement width but building a brand new road based on current standards. Then you start getting into your full depth reclamation, which is basically rebuilding the subgrade up. Then your 4-inch mill and overlay, which is basically taking off the surface and adding 4 inches of asphalt. And then your 2-inch mill and overlay, which is taking off your surface and replacing back 2 inches.
I think what it showed me was that if you take columns 2 and 3, which is the complete reconstruction at the same existing width versus a full depth reclamation at the same width, you're roughly $400,000 difference. And you've got a fully designed, engineered street for 50 years versus a 20, 30 year, almost a replacement halfway through. So that, if you put apples to apples, it shows reconstruction is the cheapest way to go. If you come back and add to the width that you would want to build with turn lanes, a standard side street width, then that bumps it up to an additional amount of about, $6.5 million. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. Over the lifetime cost, over a 50-year life, what we'd expect, because basically you have your reconstruction streets are going to last much longer than your mill and overlays or your full depth reclamation streets. So you end up having to do, in this particular scenario, you're actually doing the same project twice during the time span you're only doing this project once. So you end up having your lifetime cost ends up going up. Same thing with your 2-inch mill and overlay, which is actually the cheapest product to put down initially, but is the most expensive product over 20 years, mainly because you're doing it every 5 years. You're out there doing the same project over every 5 years or so.
With all the disruption every time.
Correct. So it's kind of, this chart was put together to try to put that into perspective and give kind of a good feeling for the different maintenance techniques that we can use and some of the costs and some of the long-term costs associated with it. So the cheapest option today may not be the cheapest option over a 50-year life.
But I guess, getting back to the question that Chris asked, that kind of tells you what you're seeing, is the not that one, if you go back to the other one, with the checks. What are you getting for the additional money? What it's showing is that the difference is you're getting the same pavement surface and stabilized subgrade if you were to do full depth. You don't get, according to this, you don't get improved driver visibility. I'm not sure I fully get that one, but the intersection improvements are, you don't get
Yeah,
the
but this,
turn lanes, you don't get the wider width, you don't get the drainage, you don't get the new sidewalks.
you can always
So
include
those
those.
are all the things that are included in that markup from the 12.5 million to the 19 million that are shown in that slide.
And those can be included in a full depth. We're doing something similar, I believe, with the conversation we had about Pleasant Run, was to do the full depth reclamation with doing some selective design improvement, drainage improvements, as well as the trail. So we can do the full depth reclamation with the other components added, but for the comparison purposes and for the dollars that are shown here, there is nothing included in the full depth reclamation column other than the full depth reclamation.
Anything else? Questions? Mike?
One more question, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, great, yeah.
During all the spring rains,
Mhm.
what, if any, flooding issues did we have along 2 and 3 of Glade?
Section
have any
2
drainage
and
issues?
3. I'm not. Let's see. Do you know if we had any road closures along Glade Road? I know we've had issues in the past with this section of Riverwalk in Glade. That would be
That
phase
was one.
I'm not aware of any significant road closures or anything that impacted.
On section 3, there was a short period, Chris, where the bottom of the hill there by Melrose Park Lane, it had a lot of water that came up. There was a lot of water standing there. I don't think they closed the street for it, but it was pretty wet for that right there.
The way north of where it goes across the north into the down there in the creek.
It was actually coming back up through the
Right.
grades.
But again, I'm not aware of any road closures or anything that happened along those spring rains. So staff has reviewed the possible funding sources for these projects. The main source of funding will be the Tax Increment Financing District, or TIF. And some of the other sources that could be used include perimeter street fees, roadway impact fees. Water and wastewater impact fees may be used as there are water and sewer projects that need to be performed at the same time as the road projects to limit the future disturbance of the new pavement. And as with all projects, staff is consistently looking for additional funding opportunities with outside agencies. For example, this may be a county agreement or a grant to help cover the cost of the construction. Based on the available and forecasted funding amounts, this phasing scenario allows for the remaining sections of the corridor to be completely designed and the right-of-way acquisitions to begin upon the design being final. This will allow for the construction of Phase 2 in late 2017, Phase 3 to begin in late 2018, and the construction of Phase 4 would not be able to be completely funded until late 2022. Again, this is based on the preliminary and conceptual plans and does not take into account any design parameters that may increase or decrease the actual costs. This is only one scenario, and if City Council has a desire to move any other projects around or to focus their attention on a particular phase, there is the ability to do that.
And Jeremy, some of this was because we want to pay cash for this.
Correct.
And when we amended the current TIF district to add in Glade Road, that based on concerted cash projections. That we would have the cash coming into the TIF to meet this. So
Correct. This is completely based on available or forecasted funding amounts. There would be no debt issued with this particular phasing scenario. I'm sure everyone is aware, there are sections of Glade Road that are in need of major maintenance. The PCI, which was last updated in 2014, ranges from the pavement condition index that was last updated in 2014, ranges from a value of 12 to 97 for the corridor. As you can see on the map below, there are several sections that are in red and that are in need of work. Depending on how the Glade Road projects progress, it will greatly affect the maintenance solution that can be implemented. And with that, I'll open for any questions or further discussion.
Is there anything you need from us on phase one?
Not at this time. We're still working with the consultant. We've had a little bit of a hiccup getting some of the final design survey coordinated, so we're running about 30 days behind on this middle, but we do not plan on delaying the letting at this time. We'll be back with more information when it becomes available with the phase one and final design. So at this time, we're good with phase one.
For the other phases, what are you looking for? Are you looking for some conceptual design considerations to help, or what's kind of what's some that you're looking for us today?
If the city council is in concurrence with this proposed phasing scenario, we'll have this incorporated into the 5-year CIP. We'll have this moving forward. This does include several different final designs. This is actually the final design for both phase 2, 3, and 4, kicking off in fiscal year 2016. So that would be included. We would start developing the scopes for those projects, including any design parameters that will be established for the individual phases. If council wishes to expedite a particular phase or, slow down one phase to build phase 3 sooner or anything sort of that, we can play with the different funding scenario options and try to figure out how we can accomplish any of the council's desires. So any direction you could provide in that regard would be.
Okay. Can we talk about this a little bit? Because I have some thoughts. On phase 1, it's going to incorporate Blue Bonnet at Glade, cutting down the hill. So we're going to have to close Glade Road for what, maybe 4 months? Something like that?
We haven't gotten to the point where we can give a good answer to that, but there would be a
It's going to be closed for an extended
there
period
will
of
be an
time,
extended time of closure for that.
which is going to cause severe headache and heartache going to that. If we get that done and then move right into phase 2, meaning going down Manning, we're going to have a lot of upset people. That's, so I was thinking maybe putting phase 3 after phase 1, because it's going to move it way to the east, and it's not as much as heavy kind of thing, to give the phase 2 area some rest, because with that, we're going to also have Highway 26 coming construction, which is going to be pretty close to the Glade Road area by that time. So there's going to be a whole lot of stuff going on. So I can just see some major set if we keep constructing that area for 2.5 years or so. It's going to be very difficult in that area. So that's why I was just kind of throwing that out.
I agree with that, and I was also going to add in about the heritage roads where we have most of our accidents from the reports we've given, so that's a higher priority for me right now.
Well, I guess another alternative, if we're closing, we have to close the phase 2 to the hill there at Blue Bonnet, would that create an opportunity to do phases 2 and 3 under a much lower volume scenario, at least for a part of the project? Could we accelerate those 2 phases? We would not be able to do it with cash. At least that's what I'm hearing, is we wouldn't have cash available to do it then. But are there some alternatives for accelerating those 2?
I just see, Bobby may shake his head yes with me. I just see if Bobby knows he can't get out of his house for 2.5 years, there's going to be some major upset. I mean,
We'll limit it to
because
1 year.
well,
Limit it to 1 year.
We also have to understand phase 3 is important, but phase 3 was redone a few years ago, and it took double the time, because I think I wasn't on, but I think you had to get a new contractor.
well, that was a text off manager deal.
Oh, was that?
Yes.
Probably. Because we lived through that for a long
Right, yeah. So that's kind of my.
So it's just, I don't
Given
think
some-
you're gonna have any scenario where anyone's gonna be happy.
Oh, no, exactly, but the way we can best manage that to maybe get some relief and then come back, I mean, I just see if you're focused in one area for a long period of time, you're gonna really have a lot of upset folks and a lot of.
Are we able to go forth with the design though? Not construction, but design.
Yeah, we can go forward with any design, or all the design elements. Yeah, I'm just gonna look at the, how to minimize, the impact on the neighbors in those specific phases. Everybody's gonna be impacted because traffic's still gonna be a major, major headache. Even though we may put out, please take a different route, people are gonna still take the same route going down the lane.
And if you take a look at Pleasant Run now, we have that closed for what we're doing, but the residents still get in. There are provisional ways that you've got for dealing with the residents, so you don't shut them out of their homes.
No, we're not right, but it was.
So the real question is, I guess, once you close it down and got people used to rerouting.
But it was a major headache. If I talked to Pleasant Run residents, it was a major.
It's not over.
Yeah, no, right, yeah, right, yeah. It's better now because at least there's some pavement now. It was extremely difficult because at one time you'd come in on one end only, or not, it was extremely hard on a group of people. So I hate to see that.
Well, and the big deal for the first section, of course, for phase one is you've got a big elevation change. So I guess if you don't have the elevation change, do you have the option of doing one side of the road first and then the other, so at least you're open for access? Or do you have to do the entire road width all at once? I don't know what you're...
It's really gonna depend on the scenario we're in. If we're shifting the alignment one way or another, that opens up opportunities. The other good thing is, as the mayor mentioned, you're using asphalt. So, we don't have to wait for curing, everything that goes with concrete. So you can get some traffic on there, quicker with an asphalt section.
When you mobilize, does it make it, this setup that you're showing us here, is there any difference in the way you mobilize if you're going from phase 1 to 2 to 3? And if you flip-flop them, are you letting contracts out at the same time or at the same place? You got the design, or how does that work? Is there an advantage or disadvantage to your cost picture if you're mobilizing just once or twice, I guess, because you got phase 4?
These projects are large enough to be beneficial by standing alone. We did talk about that a lot with Highway 26 and combining phase 2 and 3. But the size of these projects do allow them. None of these projects are small enough that we're going to get hit with quite a bit of additional charges tied to just having a small project. One of the things we have looked at, and again, when we look at the construction of the phasing, is one option may be with Pool Road being such a good kind of divide that separates phase 2 and 3. We've also looked at phase 1, if we want to include anything with phase 1 to try to kind of keep the project moving forward. A possibility may be to have almost split phase 1, keep the roundabout at Branchford Road or Bedford Road.
Branchford.
Keep the roundabout at Branchford Road on the set schedule. Have that project still let at this time, but maybe include the remaining section on the other side of Highway 26 with the phase 2 component to get that project going, and have 26 become a divide, so we're not working on both sides of 26. We work one project with the roundabout, get that project done next summer when school's out, or get it started next summer when school's out. And phase 2 could actually include a portion of phase 1, try to get that design underway at this time as well.
And how is that with funding? Do we have the cash to do something like that?
I'm confident that they would work.
We added in part of
That
phase 2
we
and
would,
1.
phase 2 is set to have funding in 2018. We could probably move that into 2017 with the remainder of phase 1.
Because Pool Road is a much better turn right, go around.
Correct.
Montclair or those.
That would be the ideal location to divert traffic versus trying to get them in through any of the.
Then the homeowners will have the opportunity to go up and down.
Correct. We would
Right.
maintain access,
Yeah.
just as Pleasant Run. It may not be the preferred route, but we'll maintain access.
But every home is going to have ingress and egress during
Correct.
construction. I think it's kind of misleading to say people locked out of their house for 10 days. That's not accurate. You're going to have ingress and egress. It may be rough like the road is now. It may be dusty. I mean, I've gone through this too. So I know what it's like, and you get past it, and you're very happy with the end. You forget these things once the final product's in.
I guess my biggest concern is that all the other phases, we don't have to close down the road, but we do have to close down Glade and Blue Bonnet, and that's what's gonna be, and there's no good alternative around to our core commercial area. So that's gonna be, and that's gonna be a very difficult time for whatever it takes, 2, 3, whatever months.
Because
The whole
Rose and
city-
Cherry isn't good.
There's just no good route, kind of thing. So it's a little bit different than, you somehow have access. There's, people on there that have from one side only, and not really a good way. You're gonna have to go, cut through Chelsea or cut through, go down the pool, or it's gonna be difficult kind of stuff. So that's why I was just thinking if possible, if we wanna offer some relief for a bit, and then come back in. Maybe when you talk to the homeowners about it, maybe they want to get it all done. I just hate to see us congested all in one area for so long that you really can, just talking a couple of years, I guess it could be. That's a lot of temporary, going on, and it's not a short stretch. It's what, mile and a half or so. It's a long stretch. It's a good piece of torn up roadway. So that was just my thought on that.
How does this phasing coincide with Highway 26 phasing?
We expect,
Will there be routes that you get north or south?
we expect the Highway 26 project to let December, I believe, are our current schedule, which will start construction basically
time.
mid-2016.
Now, part of that is we don't know if we're going to start on the north side or on the south
Right,
side.
that's what I was
So
gonna ask next.
if we phase on the north side, then again there'll be some relief.
This will be first.
But if it starts on the south side, again, that's going to be
That's
a
gonna hit at the same
convolution
time.
of stuff going on. So
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
something that, again, I have to look at that and make sure that's
Right,
geared
because I'm
in.
concerned about safety vehicles getting around and sharing the neighborhoods with all that.
Well, and tied to that, the suggestion you made earlier, tell us a little more, if you work on only one side of 26 at a time, what does that do to the way this looks for the new phase 2, which might include,
Oh.
stuff on the east side of the 26? Over.
If basically phase 1 does have that natural break in the middle, it does have Highway 26 that kind of splits it with it being a roundabout on one side and a roundabout in the lowering of the intersection on the other side. So it does kind of lend itself to be split into two projects if that's beneficial for the phasing or anything like that. So it's, it kind of goes back to what the mayor stated is where do we want to have that construction and how can we strategically kind of phase that construction to not have one area of Glade Road, one section of this corridor that has that construction basically for a prolonged period, more than they have to. And then Pool Road is a good break for that. 26 is a good break for that. So those are kind of the two separating elements that we have. It just happens that 26 is in the middle of phase 1.
Now, Jeremy, except for the roundabout on Bransford, there's minimal improvements from Bransford to 26, right?
Correct. A lot of that pavement will be reused. We'll be looking at some curb line improvements, some parkway improvements, and some striping, realignment, some configuration changes. But for the most part, that infrastructure will be reused in the final configuration.
So could it be staged to start the Bransford roundabout and start the Riverwalk, Blue Bonnet area? They're far enough apart to where.
Yeah, it almost lends itself to two almost complete projects. We have them lumped in as the phase 1 project now, but they do kind of, again, they're separated by those stretches of Glade Road that have been built along 26, so it does kind of lend itself to almost two separate projects.
Do we have anybody in here that actually knows how to phase, how you go about this in residential areas that we can even ask questions of?
What type
Right
of,
now, it appears that none of us are making assumptions without the expertise. And
It's hard.
It's like redoing your kitchen.
Well, I think Pleasant Run's a good example of what all had to go on. And that's a very short corridor, but that's a most recent example of closing down the road on one side and closing entrance on one side, closing on the other, and those type of things. So, I mean, you probably can speak to it, Jeremy, in terms of.
The struggle is we have a 2-lane roadway that we're trying to replace with a 2-lane roadway, that we're also trying to incorporate underground storm drain system. And we're also trying to reduce right-of-way impacts. So one of the main ways to reduce right-of-way impacts is to locate your storm drain under your pavement. Well, how do I install a 4-foot by 4-foot box culvert in the middle of the road and maintain 2 lanes of traffic? That's some of the difficulties that we're experiencing. We had this situation on Pleasant Run. That's a big part of why that road had to be closed, was a lot of the storm drain improvements that required large diameter pipes to be installed under what the future roadway is going to be. And there's not enough width to maintain the two-way traffic. Highway 26 is a little bit different animal. There's enough width that they're actually required to maintain 2-lane traffic in both directions. But they can actually build temporary roadways, shift all the traffic to one side, and build the storm drain system on the other side.
I understand that, Jeremy, that's why I said residential road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a difference between highways and that. It just seems to me like if you listen to the comments, you would just don't do the job. It's gonna be too much trouble. I look at Rose, I look at Blue Bonnet will be at least without going to Glade, everything north of there. Chelsea, Camelot, you will also have Montclair, you'll have Pool Road, all those are north-south ingress and egress to the homeowners along Glade. So you do have ways during sinking your pipe in the ground or whatever that you can do that. You're not going to do the whole thing in one run. You're going to trench as you go, and then you can open up these avenues. It just looks to me like I've seen this done. It sounds like we're trying to make it more difficult than what it actually is to accomplish that. I listened to a lot of people that signed that petition. A lot of people. And they were signed because they were concerned as to the process and how would it affect them. They really didn't have more interest in that, to be honest with you. And so I felt that one thing that was lacking in the whole issue was there's no plan. So I totally agree with doing the final design as far as that goes. So it's sitting on the shelf. If I'm a homeowner in Glade, I can come in and say, here's how it's going to affect me. But it's somebody telling me in a mail piece or an email or a Facebook post. I want to see it myself. I don't want to take anybody's word. And I think that's the first thing. The second thing is the greatest concern of hazard is the section 2, primarily between the Montclair and I would say the Blue Bonnet issue. So when you say that, if that's what I clearly heard from people as being the concern they had as far as safety, safer, hazard, whatever you want to call it, it was during that section. So if we sit there and say, well, we're going to do this other that doesn't concern you as much as a driver, but we're not going to do this, that bothers me. And so it's an inconvenience whatever you do to it. It's a clear and present inconvenience. But I think that the phasing is key to it. If you do that where people can get in and out of their homes, most of us are adults in this city and we've been through these reconstructions. As the city has grown, just like with Pleasant Run, we're dealing with that right now. Just not at the noise level we had on Glade. So I heard what people said. I heard why people didn't want to do anything. I accept their reasons. I accept the reasons of those that said they felt like massive changes, but I think we can do it with the small footprint we planned, the least intrusive way, and still get it done in a reasonable amount of time and keep it on target. That's phase 1, phase 2. I think your comments about the portion between Bransford and 26, there's not a whole lot needs to be done there. So why focus time and effort there? We could actually put off, get on down to the Riverwalk and start that so that your north-south issues are addressed while that's shut down. You know what you're using. But I think that extends into phase 2 as well. And then once those are done, it starts easing up. Once the underground, the flat works are done, and you start actually putting the road surface on, you're going to start freeing up. I mean, we know how it works. And yes, if we're talking time frame, who would have expected a month of rain? I mean, it throws everybody off. Those things are going to happen. But I think we need to stay focused on what we had originally planned, and that chart there, personally, I support it.
Mayor Pro Tem, may I react to your comments with a little bit of a different perspective? You know, I think if we're all being reasonable, there are a lot of different people that had a lot of different perspectives, whether it's on that resolution or this project. I don't think that people, you know, signed that petition strictly because they were confused about the issue. I think if you go back and rewind to the original justification of the project, it was to solve a bottleneck problem at Bluebonnet and Glade. And somehow solving a traffic problem has turned into a major public works redevelopment project. And I think at least a lot of the people that I talk to question why that's necessary. If we have the ability to solve the traffic problem without this level of complexity and cost, I think that's a pretty reasonable alternative point of view. And, you know, I was just going back and I did find the data between the different options, and the data doesn't jive with some of the data that
Yeah, where'd you find it?
I sent it to Jennifer and Amy.
Okay.
There was a significant cost difference. Now, however, that's now been reinterpreted. It's been reinterpreted, you know, between a couple of different options. But I think first and foremost, Phase 1 will solve the traffic problem. The Phase 1 improvements that we all agreed on. I think we all agree that they were needed and desired and can absolutely address those traffic issues. And so I just believe the next question we have to ask ourselves is, if we're solving a traffic problem, and let's solve a traffic problem, let's figure out what the least impactful, most cost-effective way to do that is. And when we keep getting wrapped around the axle is this debate about curbs and gutters and all these various amenities and engineered drainage. And maybe if we kind of simplify the way that we're looking at the problem, we can simplify the solution. And by simplifying the way we look at the problem, I mean, let's ground ourselves on the criteria for the balance of this project. Is it traffic? Is it amenities? And maybe we don't agree, and maybe it is amenities are a higher priority than traffic, which changes the criteria, or at least that's what the majority of the council, you know, decides. But it started as a traffic problem. And at least for many of us that were involved in that, we'd like to see the traffic problem addressed and the quality of the road surface addressed, and not much else.
I think part of that, excuse me, just one comment, it wasn't just the Bluebonnet. There is serious concerns of residents along there about turn lanes and protected turn, particularly when you get into my neighborhood, where we've had numerous over the years rear ends at Chelsea Drive. It's a number of things. I'm not going to say it's just one thing, Chris. But those are issues that I was told repeatedly, and I agree with them. That's just, I'm coming from that. I support that those comments. So I want to make sure it's not just about, it never has been just about Bluebonnet for me.
I would say, Bluebonnet will not solve the traffic problems. Bluebonnet will solve a barrier problem or a backup problem. But it won't solve the traffic problems. We got periods of time, 17,000 cars on Glade. It's only going to increase. We look at projections that we say we need to look at building 26 based on a 20-year horizon. Well, same thing here. Just taking down Bluebonnet is not going to take care of our traffic problems. It's going to help with our backup problems at that intersection because of a stop sign. But traffic is still going to be a major, major issue in that corridor because of the way it's being used right now. So that was why the whole corridor was something that needed to be looked at, because it was something that corridor, except for a couple components where heritage intersections redone, that kind of thing, is not built to handle the traffic issue right now with the amount of cars.
Well, I think it's important to go forward with a design and you know, see what it's going to look like, and then we can determine, no, we don't need this, we don't need, I mean, you know, if you don't go forward, you're sitting where you are. And I don't know if that's expensive, if you have to do change order, you know, at the beginning of the design, but, you know, it's important to see what we should do, whether it's, you know, just reclamation, you know, just get it done, you know, or, you know, get one sidewalk all the ways down, decide whether we're having gutters, but to have that design for phase 2 so that we may see that we can start whatever we determine we want to do on the board.
Well, the concept, that's what the preliminary design concept was for.
Yeah.
When you go to final design, that's the construction documents, which, and
The reality is there's no going back, though. I mean, really, there'll be tweaks.
Right.
And that's fine. I mean, the majority of council may decide that that's okay. So I'm not challenging that notion. I'm just saying that unless you provide those design parameters now, I mean, most likely 90% of them are going to ultimately bake into that plan. And so when you're having
Right, right.
a philosophical discussion kind of about the future of Glade and phases 2 on, you're going to be locked into whatever we decide from this point
So do
forward.
we need to give them parameters?
Yeah, that's one of the
Well,
points tonight, yeah, that's one of the things that we need
So
some
we need to tweak
guidance.
what we've seen.
But again, are we comfortable with this phasing? Or-
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not comfortable with the preliminary for phase 2, some of that, I'm not.
I
I'm
agree
not
with your
sure.
point.
I wanted to bring up,
Right,
I don't
the
want to be
timeline.
caught blindsided, oh,
Right.
we didn't realize people will be coming at us with bow and arrows because 2 years, I mean, that kind of thing.
Right,
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that we all have eyes wide open that phase 1 to phase 2 is going to be a severe constraint on that area of residence, because there's going to be a lot of continual construction for many, 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 many months. And so I just want to make sure.
Were you looking for an expert opinion outside the city council
So,
when you asked
so anyways, I think parameters, I don't know if this is the time that we need to let, if they're going forward, do we need to sort of discuss that?
Yeah, I'm under the impression what we're gonna be doing at some point is going through each of the phases a little bit more, talking about the drivers for it, which includes mobility, but it also includes other issues. We've talked about the need to widen the lanes that we've got if we're gonna allow for, emergency vehicles to go through. We've talked about whether or not we, and how we deal with pedestrian traffic and walkability.
Oh, sure, right.
The safety questions, it's not that we're just going to do one thing and stick to only one thing. We're in the process of doing something that is going to be, longer term, and as a result, we need to deal with all the aspects of it. It's not only one. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. That's really the things that come out, I believe, when we hit each of the phases in turn. I've heard the question come up about phase 1, and are we relatively good with that? And I'm hearing that we are. I guess the only question I've got is any implications on phase 2. Whatever we decide on phase 2 for sidewalks has a little bit of implication up and down the corridor. There's some pieces that don't go just by section.
Oh, no, okay,
So
yeah.
those might be worth.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. This was
After
just
we go
kind
through
of
it, yeah.
knowing the phasing now helps staff with planning is really what, and it's multifaceted planning on that. So
And if it is easier to split a portion of phase 1 from another portion, because that's how you're going to mobilize it differently anyway, that's fine. If that makes it speedier, if that makes it
Well, we are
easier to bid, if that makes it easier to mobilize for, whatever those points are. Just your point, Mayor, that section basically from Bedford Road roughly, all the way east to Heritage, that's the area that's going to see a lot of construction. And the question is, do you hit it once and you just keep going till you're done? Do you hit it once and then have a pause and then
Right.
come back?
Well, I mean,
That's really what the question is.
Yeah, that's just kind of bring it up. And let me get a resident's perspective. Bobby, you want to kick in?
In our type of field, we used to do a lot of streets, but now we don't as much, but it was always egress and degress for the residents. So on your phase 1, what I would suggest is that you would stop from west of Riverwalk, do the phase 1 towards Bransford Road, leaving the Riverwalk open for those that are coming down Glade Road that can use the big major road, which is Riverwalk. When that phase is done, you close that off from that section back to where you're doing your work. That way, those people that are on the west side of Riverwalk have that Riverwalk and 26 to go through on that end. It's finished. So you got your egress and egress in that one area. That's where your split really should be.
But having on the east side of Bluebonnet continual construction for a couple of years, what's going to have impact on you?
That's a pounding.
I mean, that's all. So I just want to be clear.
Would you rather do it all in the 12 to 15 months when we have Bluebonnet shut down, so we have reduced traffic in that section?
That depends on your contractor. If your contractor's smooth and fast, it's a good deal. But if he's slow and mowed, then you know what, hop, skip, and jump is sometimes not a bad deal, and he's correct. With a job and project that's that big, you're not going to have a mobilization fees on these projects.
We got Jeremy this time though, and not Tech Stuff.
Because that, I'm telling you, that was really a
That's why I just wanna make sure
Okay, good.
everybody's
That was a different,
clear,
Yeah.
you know, that people may be saying, yeah, come do my street now, come do my area now. But once you have a period of roads closed for 2-3 months, and there's
Yeah.
nothing may be saying, when are you gonna get this thing open? You know, well, no, we'll get it open for you in a couple of years. It's really gonna cause some headaches, heartaches.
Terry, if we did do the section from 26 to Pool, would the construction times be additive or would they happen at the same time? Does that make sense?
Sequential versus,
We would probably look at that amount of work, and what kind of what kind of contractor we would expect to get, and see if we could actually, we would not just add those days together. They would be reduced to some extent. The amount of that is subject to how those plans kind of fit together. But it would be, in that case, we would be looking for one contract that would mobilize multiple crews to handle multiple sections. So it may actually look like 2 projects, but it may only be one. If we had something that long, you know, we'd have probably pockets of work going on throughout the corridor. I would like to touch on Councilmember Copeland's comment about how we're going to be kind of moving forward. I think we had some questions about that. The intent will be to have those design parameters incorporated into that final design scope. So with that contract with the design consultant for the design of that final phase, so I'll take phase 3 for example, when we initiate that final design contract, there will be a clear definition in that scope of services of what we expect to be designed, what we expect to have accomplished, and any design parameters we want included in that particular section. So we would have some future conversations to finalize those particular items for each of those phases, knowing that each phase will probably have different elements that we're looking for. But those will actually be incorporated into the contract documents included in the design consultant.
Also keep,
That's one other question on the phasing. We've got phase 4, we're not starting construction until 22. Would it make sense to wait until closer to that time to actually do the right-of-way acquisition? We have some potential development out on that section of Glade that we may actually have right-of-way dedicated to the process.
So that's definitely an option. Again, this was basically looking at the available and forecasted funding where we had everything fall with the kind of one of the initial parameters for this particular model was to initiate the final design of right-of-way acquisition as soon as funding was available, and then stacking the construction when the funding was available. But that would be an option. We could actually delay the final design and acquisition later.
Given the several year lag time
Yeah.
on that, conditions can change.
Just prioritize and go which is first.
And that may actually allow phase 3 to be constructed a little bit sooner.
I guess the other side of it, at least as far as the final design piece goes, is if you know what that looks like, then residents can know what that is, and it's not a great big uncertainty out there in front of them. I think you're right about the right-of-way acquisition. It ought to be relatively close to the construction. But getting rid of uncertainty is a good thing.
I think also in your phasing, don't forget that when you get through my neighborhood area, Chelsea/Cranbrook, Arthur almost acts like a slip lane. So you have the ability to literally do all the way down, and both Cranbrook and Chelsea have dual ingress and egress. And that allows you a braking, it looks to me like it would be a braking point there, because you could push everybody to the east side of the subdivisions until you get all that done, and then open up the west exits and entrances on Cranbrook West and Chelsea, and you would be able to then close down the other and continue on. So I'm just trying to think in my head all the streets we have that allow our residents to flow easily. And I think that needs to be looked at more so than say what he determined to be the phasing. Because let's think about our own neighbors and how they actually live their lives every day.
And that's some of the items that you're bringing up, or when we get to that, the phasing plan for the actual construction, is when we start looking at, you know, what we can close down at what period of times, what can we have, you know, where do we have kind of free access, where we can limit. We do maintain ingress and egress at all times, but with a subdivision that has 3 entry points, we may reduce it to 1, keep 1 clean, but the other 2 may be closed for between 9 and 5 during the day during working hours.
So any other comments? Do we want to keep it as in place? main thing is we need to really get, which we do anyway, but really get with the residents and make them aware, you know, way ahead of time, what the impact's gonna be, those type of things, so, you know, everyone has some clarity that, you know, it's gonna be a struggle for a bit, but then, you know, once that's done, they'll be, you know, freed up, because it's gonna be tough.
Is pushing the right-of-way acquisition out on phase 4, is that something we need to take formal action to make that happen? Or when you say, are we all okay?
Oh, you mean moving?
Well,
up?
I mean, we can do it,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we can move phase 4 with records or right away out, yeah, it's.
I would also say, Mayor, on that phase 4, we need to go ahead and work with our neighboring city and find out what
Right,
participation
right.
they're going to have. So that's not.
Now decide what we're actually gonna do.
Once we see the actual final designs too, if you've got your packages defined right, you still have the option of doing some changing, right? I mean, as long as your packages are defined, that gives you flexibility. We're not stuck with exactly what we come up with today.
Final design, you are, unless you wanna pay to have it changed. And
But
so
we
that,
can-
so that's a concern, because like on 26, okay, we paid to have 6-lane plans, then we paid to have 4-lane plans, then we paid to have 6-lane plans.
Okay,
So, I mean, it's.
But the sequencing doesn't necessarily affect that. That's the
No,
design
no, no, no.
parameters. If we change the design parameters, you're
Right,
absolutely right. But if you talk about whether phase 2 comes before phase 3 or phase 3 before phase 2, or even being able to split the package that you've got for phase 1.
Well, we're gonna wanna plug this in our CIP is the thing, that's why.
True.
So we don't wanna get to where we're saying this is good, and all of a sudden we come to phase 2 and suddenly go, well, let's change it and go, you know, that's why I just need to have some good thoughts of, so staff can plan, we're looking 5 years on out in terms of, you know, because we have a lot of other roadway projects going around the city too. Sure. This isn't just, this isn't the only single project in town, there's a lot of other stuff that's happening, so it's gonna be, you know, important for us to give good direction, saying, this looks like a good, yeah, let's go with this. Now, something I guess could always change drastically, you know, either not enough proceeds or, you know, whatever, that we make some changes, but it's always good to have for the staff to know so they can plan with all the other stuff we got going around in town. So, move accordingly.
So what I've heard, and I just want to make sure I heard this correctly, we'll be moving the phase 4 final design and phase 4 right-of-way acquisition probably out to 2020, 2021. Now that may fluctuate depending upon the actual costs that are incurred, because funding may become available, we may actually be able to move those sooner, or we could delay those if that's council's direction, but that's.
I guess the question is still on whether phase 4 final design stays where it is and move the right of way, so that people know what they.
I think we need to design a road, Jeremy. I was embarrassed that we had, here, this whole movement was created and nothing to show people. Not a thing other than conceptual. And so I think you're much better off when you can say, here's how it affects you. How do you feel about that? Because they're looking at a drawing. And to sit there and just talk about pies in the skies, clear cutting trees. I mean, I heard so many things, I don't even know what they were talking about. But if we'd have had construction drawings, or we'd have had it narrowed down to here's where it affects your property line and whatever, it would have been a lot less aggravation for people. And I'm just putting myself, I do live in this area. And I want you to get it done and get out. That's me. I don't want to stagger it and then you take the break off and come back. But that's my personal preference. And I think I've got a lot of people agree with that. But, you know, it's just, everybody looks at it differently. And I just think the one thing we can all look at is a set of drawings.
And Mike, though, we were always moving towards that. With Pleasant Run,
I know, Mayor.
it's a process we go through. And we did a conception for Pleasant Run to design it. We went to final design, we got with the homeowners and showed them all how it's done. And then we went and implemented it. So the same thing we were moving forward with Glade Road. We had a preliminary design, and the next step was to move through final design in stages, and we started with, you know, with phase 1, and then it got interrupted for a bit, but I mean, that's the process we have always been following. So a key thing to remember, though, is the preliminary renderings are probably going to be a better, whatever, visual than looking at those construction documents. I mean, that's because you're just looking at, and that's, so, you know, if you really want to have what the residents are going to look like, you're probably going to have renderings redrawn or whatever, because you you can go and look at the Pleasant Run document, you know, it's just a bunch of lines. It's tough to visualize what, you know, how things really lay out on a three-dimensional road, so.
People are visual.
Yeah, kind of thing,
Doing perspective drawing.
so, those type of things, yeah.
So the direction would be to delay the right of way, but, and it have the design all the same.
You okay with that?
Yeah, meet with hers to find out what participation we're gonna have from them.
That's about, what, $1 million total, Jeremy?
The sections,
Those three sections?
I would say in the ballpark.
So is there's funding, adequate funding to accomplish that without impacting anything? $1 million today?
For this particular business?
Yeah, with
Yes.
the three design phases, 2, 3, and 4.
Yes, correct.
Total's
Now,
about $1 million roughly somewhere for all three
correct.
phases.
Everything right here is available with available or projected funding.
Okay.
When we get a couple years out, when we start experiencing actual costs, it may differ. There may have to be some slight adjustments, but I'm confident with this particular phase scenario.
And then what we'd say on the phase 3 right away, prioritize phase 2 first. Does that make sense?
Yes,
And then
absolutely.
move to
When
phase
we-
3 once.
And we'll do the same thing with the utility relocates,
Yeah.
depending on the construction schedules, we'll be looking at how to prioritize those
Yeah.
those discussions with the right of way utilities as well.
We don't just, right. Isn't that, do we need to take a short break? It's an hour and a half. Or everybody still good? Or?
Take a short.
Okay, take a short break, 7:27.